Hey, I'm Emily, one of the SEs at Lucid. I'm going to show you how to make some conditional formatting rules that help you sum up things in a dynamic table. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Let's start with one that's a little bit more basic. So what I have here is I'm actually counting how many tickets exist in each, say, column and also in each row. So I'm actually going to switch this over to Lucidchart so you can see me make the conditional formatting rule. Now this one already exists, but essentially what I am doing here is I am adding a rule. And I am using, in this case, a formula. And the formula in this case, I'm actually going to pull from the shape type. So we really only want to apply this to, in this case, we're going to do columns, and then we're going to make an if-else statement for rows, just so that we can put the icon in the right spot. So let's actually go to the one that I've already made, and I'm going to show off that formula here, which is essentially I'm saying if, contains the shape type of the shape we're currently looking at, then I'm going to look for specifically dynamic matrix column block class name. Now, there's easier ways that I could have done this. For example, I simply could have just said contains shape type column, because there's not many shapes that are going to be called a column in Lucid, and this will still work. I did grab the specific shape type name. Again, not super necessary, but that is how we're going to target specifically the columns. Then I chose to use the icon option. I chose the text badge option. And I gave them a different background color than the default. So instead of blue, I chose charcoal here. I then included, instead of custom text or shape data, I chose to use a formula. This is important because this is where we're actually going to do the counting. And the formula here is quite simple. We're using what's called an attribute in Lucid. So I'm simply saying, grab the shape that we're currently on, which is how conditional formatting works. It basically says, okay, we figured out the condition, I'm a column. And so for this column, I want to grab this dot notation. And then the syntax is just $contents. Lucid has a lot of attributes that you can access. So I could do, this dot $, and then we can access things like the columns. If I was on the table, I could access the contents, which is what we're after. I could look at the, ID, when the item was created. We have all kinds of things you can grab here, like tags, that kind of stuff. However, contents is what we're after here, because that lets us grab everything that is in the column. And then the reason that we're wrapping it in a count is, as you can imagine, we want to know how many things are in that column. And that is the formula that we are using here, that we're asking the little text badge to display. So what's happening is every single column in this page, I'm gonna grab this and move it over here, just to show you here. If I were to select this specific column to do, there's only one thing in there, and you'll notice my icon is counting 1. All right, so let's finish out the rule. So I've got my identifying specifically columns. Again, I've chosen icon, text badge. I've given it the formula to count the contents of the column. And then the other thing that I've done here is I turned on the custom hover text option. This is nice because it means that when I hover over that icon, it lets me put a message there. So in this case, I've chosen to say, insert actually the number of cards. So this little curly bracket syntax, 2 open curly brackets and 2 closing ones around, in this case, the exact same formula I used above, is actually going to resolve that formula and let me display it in this specific text. So it's going to say, 1 cards, great grammar there, in column. And that basically allows me to see how many and put my little message when I display it on hover here. Then the final thing is I chose the position. Most of the time we default to here. As you can see, that's not great in a table. The best position for a column is to put it up above here. You really don't want it overlapping. That looks kind of funny. So really this is the best spot where you can then see the icon, how many total cards are in the column. Okay, then what I've done is I simply did add an else if, and I already have mine on here. I did the exact same formula with one swap. I'm looking for row instead of column. Again, this could simply say row and we'd be fine, but I did choose to put the full thing in there. No ID. Wait. Okay, so I've applied it now to specifically rows, and then I actually did the exact same thing. Even the formula is the same because we've already identified that this is specifically a row. So now we're saying what is in this row, meaning we're going to get 4 or 3 or 2, depending on how many cards are placed in the row there. And again, I did the exact same thing with the custom hover text. The main difference here, the position, if I had it here on a row, again, it would look super weird. So we're going to go with over on the side here so it appears by the title of the row. So that's our formatting rule. That's how we total up the number of cards. What if we didn't want the number of cards though? What if we were working with something like a Jira table? So I'm actually going to let you see me build this from scratch here, and we're going to look at something like the story points. Let's make sure there are some story points on all of my Jira options here, just so that we can see, a couple examples. Okay, and we'll have one row where the story points is going to be 0 because it's not set yet. All right, so I was in Lucidspark. I've got my Jira cards in a table. I'm going to switch to edit in Lucidchart. And I'm going to go ahead and build my rule here. So remember, the first thing I'm going to do is switch this to formula. And I'm just going to say equals contains shape type. And then it's actually going to copy that over because I don't remember the total name of it. But again, we could just say column. Let's just do column. That's a lot easier. So column. And the next thing we are going to do is switch it to icons. You'll notice that the icons are starting to appear already because it's like, hey, I found a column. I'm going to switch this to my text badge. I don't want blue. Maybe I want charcoal again. That seems like a nice color. We'll do our formula. And again, my formula here is going to be count this dot $ contents, if that's what I was looking to do in terms of counting the total cards. We're actually doing something different now. We want to grab their story points. So what I can do is I happen to know there's a property on every Jira card called story point estimate. And what this .contents is doing is giving me a list of all those cards. So I can simply say, all right, from all those cards, I specifically want you to grab for me story point estimate. Now this will change as Lucid is looking for ways to kind of map, depending on what the story points field is called, to map it to something really common. But what we've got here is this .story point estimate. And also I don't want it to be count. I want it to be a sum because we're looking to total all of that up. So my formula has changed. It's now grabbing all the contents of the column and it's saying, okay, get me their story point estimates if they have them and sum them all up. So that is now going to give me that. And let's go ahead and copy that formula because we're going to use it in our custom hover text as well. So I'm going to say total story points points in column. And then I'm going to use my interpolated text. So double open curly brackets, paste my formula in and closing curly brackets. And that just ensures it appears nicely with the text. And then finally, let's put that in the right spot. And you'll already see we're getting the right totals here. This is totaling up to 11. There's no story points on this one. So we're basically ignoring it. And then there's 11 on this one. Same in this column. I can see 2, none, none. So we're getting a total of 2 and our hover message is working. All right, let's do this exact same thing here. So I'm going to do my else if, and I'm going to say, again, this one's going to be contains, and we're going to say shape type, and specifically we want row this time. Again, you could get the actual name of the column. It's much longer. And we are once again using icons text badge. Let's do the same exact color. And let's do a formula. And we're going to paste that same formula here. Because again, this .contents works because we already know it's a row. We've already figured that out in the condition. And same thing for the custom hover text. In fact, I'm just going to copy this whole thing so I don't have to do it again, but we'll swap column for row, and let's move the position. So again, we've got 11 because none and 11 makes 11. We've got 0 and 0. If we wanted to, we could probably set the condition or the formula to ignore it if it's 0, but I think we probably want to display that anyway, and we're all set. So now we are looking at total story points in row columns, and we'll label specifically Jira because that's what it's grabbing. So we've named our rule, it's applied to everything, and we can see it functioning here. Let's play around with it. Let's assign some story points here. And we should see that go up to 5 and up to 14. Keep in mind that if you have the table selected in any way, the little grabbers are going to kind of get in the way of your icon dot there. So just make sure if you really want to hover over, deselect the table and you can see that. And we could even then move this back to Lucidspark and potentially start bringing in additional things. If I move things, we're actually going to see those numbers and totals change as well. All right. Hope this is helpful, and let us know if you have questions. Thanks.